Hello, Internet. Bearded Bristol is back, at least for one fleeting moment, anyway. No, I'm not dead. I've just been tired and shagged out after a prolonged squawk. That said, I had a career change along the line. Second time, probably you've heard this if you followed me for any length of time. Uh, but it drew me away from the video realm for quite some time. I've been focused on other things like work, I guess. Apparently, I'm bored with that. Um, and that's not actually true, but there have been a series of events, including some friends, prompting me to get back into the video game that have led me into the video game. So here I is, and I've been doing some thinking. Actually, I've been thinking about thinking. And I've been thinking about what other people are thinking. And I've been thinking about why other people think the way they think, and thinking about why I think the way I think, and thinking about why I even care about why they think or what they think. And I don't have any answers yet, but nevertheless, I am still very much a stoic when it gets right down to it. If you are new to this, I do have a series of videos called Weekend Philosophy from a few years back, where I dive into just some common everyday issues, things that we don't think about and maybe should, things that we should maybe think about a little differently. There we go, thinking again. Gets me into trouble every stinking time. I also have a series of Scotch videos out there called Scotch for the Common Man. But here we are today in brand new 2021. For all of you that thought this was going to be better than 2020, hold my beer and watch this. We're off to a rip-roaring start, which is maybe even more than anything why I'm back in the game. Nobody cares what I have to say, but I like to think they do, so here we are. Like I say, I'm a stoic, I'm a minor league philosopher, so we'll just call this philosophy for the common man. Scotch. A little Macallan 12 to start off the evening, or polish off the evening, depending on where you are in the chain of events. Anyway, I want to talk about bias. You know what bias is? Yeah, you know what bias is. You're not idiots. Confirmation bias. We've all heard of confirmation bias. We may not know exactly what it is, and I'm not going to deep dive into it because it's relevant, but it's not the whole point. So confirmation bias is essentially paying attention to and believing only the things that already conform to our beliefs. You might watch the nightly news and say, I knew it, that politician is a crook. Yeah, it's just a shot at a dartboard there. I don't know whatever would have made me pull up that random example. Doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You think that all politicians are crooks, or at least the opposing party is full of them. Nevertheless, confirmation bias is seeking out information that already tends to lean towards the direction that you believe or you wish to believe. The question is, how did you get to that belief to begin with? And by and large, most people can't answer that question. Some of us do research. Some of us have studied politics. Not me. I have never studied politics. I've studied some philosophy, which keeps me coming back. It's a very deeply absorbing world. Never studied politics. Never wanted to. I was a lifelong Republican thanks to my parents. They were Republicans. That was good enough for me, I guess. And I remember being in high school when Bill Clinton was running for election against Bob Dole. Bob Dole, the juggernaut Bob Dole. And we did a mock election, and Bill Clinton won. And I remember as a young Republican, for no apparent reason other than my parents were Republicans, thinking, I can't believe Bob Dole lost. I can't believe all of my classmates are Clinton fans. It was one of the most mind-numbing mind-boggling experiences of my high school life. And it took me a very long time to piece that all together, because Republicans and Democrats are supposed to be different, right? But I liked most of my classmates. Well, no, I really didn't, but I thought I understood them anyway. And here they were, Democrats? Is that even possible? It just didn't make sense to me. And it was not until late in college when I started to understand confirmation bias and my own victimhood to it, but also my high school classmates' victimhood to it. We were all believers of a political ideology based on our parents' leanings. None of us, I mean zero of us, had done any actual research. And I did extemporaneous speech in high school. I mean, I had to research things for speeches, and I had to do it very quickly and to absorb the information and understand it. But I still was functioning almost solely on confirmation bias. And I did that through most of my early adult life. And somewhere, and I wish I could pinpoint the exact moment or moments when that happened, that I changed. Where I kind of gave up that confirmation bias and started to see things through a different prism, and through a prism that showed, well, a prism, it separates light. I guess I don't need to explain it a great deal more than that, but I saw lots of different angles all at once. I could see why Democrats were Democrats, Republicans were Republicans, and why I wasn't particularly either one of them. But that said, I was able to kind of lift that veil of confirmation bias. And I still suffer from it. Don't think that I've risen above it or that I'm chastising anyone who is victim of confirmation bias, because I don't think it's something you can ever truly shake. But it is something that I was able to at least begin to identify in my own life. And what it led me to was a much more libertarian, liberty-focused reality beyond any political party lines. And it's a much smaller group, maybe, at least in terms of those who identify actively as that group. And I think that just helped further the notion that people don't really know why they think what they think. They just think, or don't think, as a matter of fact. I have a very, very good friend. I spend 2-3 nights a week with him, just drinking beer and rehashing the day's events and trying to get past the fact that work sucks for everybody all the time. And we can talk about immigration, and he's very anti-illegal immigration. Hear me when I say illegal. Hates high taxes, hates government overreach, government regulation, excessive government spending. Not a big fan of entitlement programs. And so when you start to paint a picture of that, it sounds kind of like a textbook Republican. Nevertheless, he has never voted Republican in his life. He is a devoted Democrat who's also no longer a big fan of President Biden. But he will vote Democrat next election too, because he always has. And I challenge him to think about that. And he will agree with me on almost every political topic by the time we reach the conclusion. But he's still a Democrat. Which is just, that's more than confirmation bias. That is, it's a group bias also. It's something he's inherited from his parents that he has carried with him his whole life. He also spent a lot of time in a union. Those are all Democrat-leaning things. And don't misunderstand me. I am not picking apart the Democrat Party or the liberals or any of that. That's not what this is about. This is just merely drawing a distinction of someone who has believed something or has been something his entire life that he doesn't even actually believe in. But because of those predisposed biases and the fact that he's not able to identify those or not willing to correct them, he will continue down the same path, voting for candidates that are almost the antithesis of what he believes. And it takes it almost to another level of confirmation bias, to something I'm going to refer to as stadium bias. And this is a brand new term for philosophy of the common man. But stadium bias, I'm going to take to all of you sports fans out there, or all of you spouses of rabid sports fans who have sat there next to a friend or a family member or a spouse and listened to them rail against the officials for a missed call, or have railed against the officials because they caught a call. I can't believe they're going to call that a face mask. We scored a touchdown. We took the lead. We won that game if it wasn't for that stupid official. Really? He turned the guy's head around in a circle. It's clearly a penalty. But you believe so strongly in that team, for whatever reason, you believe so strongly that you are willing to overlook the abject fallacy there and pretend almost that it didn't happen. And that if only this one thing, then my team would have won. And it's reinforced by the entire stadium crowd around. And you know within that stadium, there are people that see the truth, but they are still going to yell at the official for being wrong. And that's why I refer to it as stadium bias, is that even when you can look the truth in the eye and say that it's wrong, because all of these people are here too, they say it's wrong, they may see the truth, but they aren't going to admit it to themselves or to other people that they understand it. And they are going to continue to root their team on, hoping for victory in the end. And it's if you can identify that in other people and identify that even in yourself, it really gets to be an eye-opening experience. And I started to identify this in myself. I am a rabid football fan. I love watching American football. Forget that European football stuff. I'm sorry. I get the association foot and ball. I agree, American football, it's a stupid name for the game. But it's a fun sport. Nevertheless, I used to be a rabid college football fan and suffered from stadium bias, where my team, even when they lost, they didn't really lose. It was just those 2 or 3 plays, and if the officials would have this, everything would have been different. But it wasn't. The reality was, my team screwed up, they lost. My team screwed up, they got caught. You know, whatever it was. But it took a period of really mediocre football for me to understand, or to start to understand, my own bias as it related to the sports world, which you can extrapolate throughout the entire scope of your life, honestly. Sports is wonderful because it becomes a microcosm of our own personalities. And we take those same biases that we have in the big, wide-ranging world, we take those same biases, we just condense them into a single passionate sports environment with our favorite teams. There's really, that's just how it is. I wish I could put a better explanation behind it, other than sports happens at a much greater clip. You know, a game of football is, or a game of professional football is 60 minutes on the clock. Of course, it takes 3 hours, commercials, timeouts, all that injuries, injuries. Oh my God, I've got a cramp. Now I start sounding like I'm talking about European football, but no, that's American football now too. I digress. Nevertheless, I think because sports is such an intense period of time where people put it all out there and boom, we get to experience all of this emotion, all of this intensity, and then it's over. It's kind of a microcosm of our day-to-day lives. It's just compressed into a tight little ball, and it gives us a chance to cheer, in essence, for ourselves. We like our teams because in one way or another we feel that's a reflection of who we are. So if they win, we win. And I, sorry to turn this into a sports chat, that wasn't the intention, but I have an uncle who actually could not get off of his couch the day after a major college football loss a few years back. And he called his wife, who was at work, and said, I don't know how you do it. She said, do what? How you recover after a loss like that? She's like, was there a game? She was not a big sports fan, so she missed out on that whole episodic, emotion-filled thing, and my uncle could not separate himself personally from that environment. And back to the stadium bias that I'm speaking of, you see the same thing with people, whether it's political, whether it's sports, whether it's occupational. Unions also a great example. It's hard to separate yourself and your personal biases, your own personality, from that group, from that stadium when you have invested that much energy. And I understand, I intimately understand how hard it must be to break those chains and become far more objective, but that's exactly what we all need to do. It's great to be passionate about things. I am still passionate about my college team. They're just still slightly better than average, or, let's be honest, slightly below average. See, there's confirmation bias there, and there's the stadium bias, bias. Nevertheless, biases, bias us, something we're never going to shake completely. We're never going to be unbound by the chains of biases. That's just how our brains work. Anybody who tells me that they're unbiased, I will put them in front and unbus. How about that? Now I'm not making any sense. Now, seriously though, we'll never shake the chains of biases, but it is important for us to understand where they exist in ourselves and in other people, if we're ever going to change the prevailing winds, because right now other people are pulling the strings on us. Other people far more powerful, far more wealthy, far more influential are pulling the strings on us as a society, and we are somewhat willy-nilly just kind of following along because of things like social media. We get bombarded daily with all of these things, and confirmation bias comes into play, and you see enough of that, and you see enough things from your friends on Facebook or Twitter, God bless it, the fax machine of social media, and you see enough of that nonsense, and it's going to start to bend and twist what you actually believe. And maybe what you believe is actually factually wrong. That's why you have to think about why you think, and think about what you think, and do some doggone research. And it's tough, because it does sometimes feel like everything leans one way. And it doesn't matter if you're conservative or liberal, you get involved in that bubble and you just keep seeing the same things over and over, and it reinforces those biases instead of breaking you free from them. So my encouragement to everyone out there, first of all, diversify what you're reading and what you're watching, because constantly being told you're right may feel good, but it ain't making you any smarter, and it ain't putting any money in your pocket, that's for damn sure. But be objective. You know, a few years back, I believe President Trump was railroaded for executive orders, and it was an abuse of power according to the prevailing winds of the media. Last time I checked, about 10 minutes ago, President Biden has signed almost double the amount, if not more than double the amount of executive orders than did President Trump. But with President Biden, what I keep hearing is that it makes him a leader. He's an American. He is pro-democracy. All of these wonderful isms and things that make him a great man, because the media, by and large, did not like President Trump. Similarly, if you are a Trump follower and a Trump fan, the man has done nothing wrong over the last 5 years, which is also incorrect. Republicans in general are supposed to be in favor of reduced spending and conservative, financially, fiscally conservative values, and I'm not sure he not so much hit that mark. So this is not meant to be a politically leaning video by any stretch, but it is meant to show that there are biases out there that we all succumb to. And I would encourage everybody out there to get beyond that, whether it's politically, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the relationships. Would you treat little Bobby's buddy the same if he punched your kid as you would if your kid punched little Bobby? Which are you going to sue his parents? Are his parents going to sue you? How would you react in either one of those situations? And try to keep it consistent, for God's sake, because I guarantee you, your kid ain't any better of an angel than little Bobby is. I've seen little Bobby; it ain't pretty. Anyway, I have chatted you all up enough for one night. God, I'm tired of talking. I'm not tired of talking at all. I can keep this up all night. I just ain't gonna. I am gonna polish off my scotch. I'm gonna enjoy the heck out of the rest of my Friday night with a pipe. That probably makes me pretentious, except I'm wearing plaid, which says pretty laid back, not pretentious vibe. I'm going to call it a night here before I really say something stupid. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope that I can continue to post some videos of mildly entertaining and mildly thought-provoking things. Have a great night, y'all. We'll talk to you again soon. This is just your average maintenance guy with some average thoughts. We'll talk to you later.